I come to the Spirit, the three in one. I come to the water, just as I am, oh God, make me new once again.
Well, good morning. Welcome to Fridays with Francis. It is good to be with you today. I was going through some old files the other day, just sort of trying to clean up a little bit. And as I went through one of the files, I noticed something that I had written quite a few years ago, maybe as many as 10 years ago. It was quite a while back. And the thought occurred to me that it might be a lot of fun just to share that with you today. I think it was probably in preparation for a sermon that I was preparing, but I'm going to read it to you today, and I hope you find it maybe a little entertaining, but also I hope you'll find it thought-provoking. I have a plant in my office. It isn't much to look at. As a matter of fact, I think the thing is dead. Gail suggested that I place it in the study as a way of adding color to my surroundings. At the time, it was beautiful, it was green, it was alive. It was a very good idea, except for one very important factor. I'm lethal when it comes to plants. I kill plants. This plant sort of reminds me of that old Lowe's commercial from several years ago in which they showed a scene from the lab of Frankenstein in which a plant appears in black and white, and then this voice begins to say, "What's the best thing you can say about your plant 1 year after you planted it?" Immediately a hunchback figure appears and begins to scream, "It's alive! It's alive!" Well, this plant sort of reminds me of that commercial, except the last part would be a lie. I don't think you'd call this plant alive. Someone was in my office just the other day and saw my plant. He said to me, "Francis, I know that I'm no gardener, but even I know a dead plant when I see one." He is right. Gail gave me instructions about the care of the plant. She said, "Now, honey, you need to make sure that this plant gets watered." I would go about my business from day to day and forget about the plant, and that's when Gail would seem to stop by, and she would say, "Francis, if you don't water this plant, it's going to die." I decided that she probably had a point, so I started watering the plant. I'd give it a good drink of water, sometimes 2 or 3 times a day. One day, as I came into my office, I noticed an interesting thing. Some of the leaves had fallen off of the plant. Well, I thought, Gail is right. I've got to give this plant more water, so I did. The next day, there were even more leaves on the floor, so I'd give it more water. A few days after we started losing leaves, Gail came in and said, "What have you done to this plant? It's dying. You're killing my plant." I said, "Well, honey, I've been giving it plenty of water, sometimes twice, maybe 3 times a day." Gail said, "You are drowning my plant." So I quit watering the thing. Now in my office, there is a plant that is dead, but the container looks awfully nice. Oh my goodness, I remember writing that. I remember the plant. And it was a topic of conversation for some time to come. You know, the sad reality is the purpose of the plant was not to just show off the container it was in. The purpose of the plant was to add beauty to its surroundings. But because I didn't know what I was doing, I killed the plant. Well, this is more than just a funeral eulogy for a once live plant. It also reminds me of a story that Jesus told. See, Jesus told when he was confronting the scribes and Pharisees, which seemed to be his recurring nemesis as he made his way about doing ministry, he used an analogy with them that went like this, and this comes from Matthew chapter 23, verse 27. Woe to you, teachers of the law and the Pharisees, you hypocrites! You're like whitewashed tombs, which look beautiful on the outside, but on the inside are full of the bones of the dead and everything unclean. You see, for the Pharisees, they seemed to concentrate on ritual and maintaining a good outward appearance, getting the respect they thought they were due. But what Jesus wanted to speak to them about was how they were maintaining the health of their spiritual soul. It's a very valid point. Sometimes we're a little bit like those Pharisees. Maybe as it relates to our spiritual souls, we might even be a little bit like the gardener that I am. You know, I hit those spells where I'd give water to the plant, or then I'd hit a spell where I'd forget about the plant and not attend to it, and because of that, it was much as they say, on again, off again kind of attention to the plant. And sometimes when we treat our spiritual souls that way, we vacillate between growing in Christ and moving away from Christ. It reminds me of something that I read once a long time ago about I don't remember who wrote it, but they said that we humans are a lot like porcupines. Porcupines on a cold winter night. We are in need of one another, and so we continue to go close to one another until our quills begin to stick in one another, and then we start moving away from one another. It's a rhythmic dance that we maintain all the way through life, is the way this writer put it. Well, that's kind of the image that I have when I think about the way some of us approach our relationship with Christ. Sometimes we're very much consistent with our reading and our devotional and walking alone, hand in hand with God. But then there are times when we move all along and never give God a second thought. And so I thought I would just use that as a way of getting us to think a little bit. Here we are the week following Easter. It must have been an amazing time for the disciples. It must have been a difficult time for them, having been on a roller coaster of human emotion. But I wanted us to think a little bit about not so much the vessel as the contents. Not so much about looking the part, but in living the part. Not so much as having the right appearance, but focusing internally on a right relationship with Christ. We are invited by Christ to walk with Him and to share our lives with Him. As a matter of fact, it really goes all the way back to the Garden of Eden, doesn't it? When God created humanity, we were created to have relationship with God and fellowship with God. Some of the most beautiful language, I think, is when Genesis describes God walking with Adam and Eve in the garden in the cool of the evening. So how is the relationship going with you and with Christ? The founder of Methodism, John Wesley, once said that he didn't have any concern that the people called Methodists would continue to exist. His concern was that we would exist, but we would have the form of religion without the power of it. In other words, John Wesley was saying he was concerned that the plant might be dead, but the container would look quite nice. So how is it looking in your life? So my prayer for you is that in this Eastertide season, we may give the proper attention to the growth of our spiritual lives so that we look good on the inside and the outside, and we're faithful as disciples of Jesus. Well, that's my thought for this Friday. I hope that you have a wonderful day and a great weekend. And I pray that you will go with God as God blesses you. Go in peace.
I come to the Father, I come to the Son, I come